We saw that Arjuna fell in love with Subhadra last week and they were married. Um, so when the five Pandavas married Draupadi, one of the, like I mentioned, there was many rules that were set up for them to be able to live harmoniously together and to live in discipline despite the situation. And one of the rules was that the five of them lived in one palace. Although in those days it was normal for the queen to have her own palace, but no other wife married to any of the five Pandavas lived in that palace. And so in some commentators' versions of the Mahabharata, it is said, this is how Draupadi maintained control. So all the five Pandavas, because they only were with Draupadi for 1 year, and then 4 years they weren't with her, all of them had other wives, with I think the exception of Yudhishthira. But none of those other wives stayed in the palace. They either stayed in their own kingdom or in another palace. So now when Subhadra is coming, she is Krishna's sister. And we know this from the very onset, because remember when Draupadi was born, it was with the intention of marrying Arjuna. So growing up, there's this, we romanticize things, right? When I get married and it will be like this and it will be like that. And we watch movies or we hear stories and we think our life is going to be this beautiful, epic love story of whatever movies that we have seen. And so for Draupadi, that was always Arjuna. And so when she does meet Arjuna, he's a little bit of a favorite. She marries all five of them, but she definitely has a soft spot for him just set up from her very birth itself. So Arjuna, who's this fearless warrior, is suddenly scared to bring Subhadra home because every other queen didn't matter, but Subhadra was not any other queen. It was Krishna's sister, known to be as beautiful, and Arjuna had fallen in love with her. And so this is also interesting, how we can be so brave in some ways and so scared in other ways. Like sometimes they'll show this in movies. There'll be this guy who's like Rambo style and he's, shooting and he's running around and sees so much blood and then fights with this one and fights with that one and, dodges a grenade and then he's scared of a cockroach or something like that. We'll see this, right? Right. Or scared of an injection. And so makes us so human. But we can be brave, not that we can't be brave, but then there'll be that one thing that, and the reason it makes us human is because it's a emotion that all of us will feel and all of us will relate to. And so maybe a particular aspect doesn't make us afraid, but we know fear. I mean, he wasn't that scared also, but he was scared. He was scared of Draupadi's reaction because Draupadi really loved him. And he loved her. And, none of them ever wanted to displease Draupadi. And so when he goes to see Draupadi, she won't look at him. Like already Arjuna's thinking, oh, she's going to be angry. And then when he gets there, she's angry. And she's refusing to look at him. And I think she makes some comment like, yes, I know you didn't miss me because you've, married so many other princesses. But it wasn't the other princesses, it was Subhadra in specific that invoked jealousy in Draupadi's heart, um, which is also another very human emotion. And this is why the Mahabharata is so incredible, because they such real emotions to be jealous, to be scared of your somebody you love so dearly, right? That's your wife, and the husband's scared of the wife. And it's such a real thing. It's such an everyday thing. Uh, in fact, he might not be scared of any other person on the planet, but he'll be scared of wife, and vice versa, right? It goes both ways. So Arjuna comes back and he tells Subhadra to dress up as a gopi, and then sends Subhadra to Draupadi's room. And she's introduced as somebody who wants to serve Draupadi. Not maid, but serve Draupadi. And when Draupadi turns around to look to see who this is, and she sees this girl dressed up as a gopi, it immediately reminds her of Krishna. And so suddenly she's filled with all this affection, and she builds up this conversation. And then Draupadi blesses this young girl, who she doesn't know is Subhadra, that you will marry a hero and give birth to a hero. And Subhadra says, I have married a hero. Then she says who it is. But by then, Draupadi already liked her. But the rule applied even to Subhadra. Subhadra lived with Krishna. I mean, of course, they're getting exiled very soon. Maybe they would have built a palace for her. Actually, it's really sad when we think about how much damage war does. She gets married within a year, they get exiled. 14 years, she lives with Krishna because they're in exile. They come back from exile and war is declared. So Subhadra actually doesn't get to be with Arjuna that long. So this interesting thing that I wanted to talk about here is this. If we say Draupadi maintained power over her husband by not allowing other women to stay in the palace, I'm not sure that's the reason. That was the rule. It could be that it would cause too much chaos to have that many people in the house. It could be some other reason, right? It could be to avoid jealousy getting created, to avoid misunderstandings to get created. They may not have been that she wanted to control them, but let's say it is. Because the thing is, we do tend to want to exert our power. And this is an interesting thing about us. So we will desire pleasure, food, clothing, AC. We'll desire pleasure. But our desire for power runs deeper than our desire for pleasure. And so it would be something like wife controlling husband, husband controlling wife. We tend to want to exert our power. We want the other person to do what we want them to do. And so if they're scared of me, they'll do what I want them to do. They want my approval, so they will do what I want them to do. And this is an interesting aspect of our psychology that we see in dynamics of relationships. Because it's not, I want power, I want to rule the world. I don't want to rule the world. I want power. I want you to do whatever it is that I desire. So sometimes one spouse will come for class and then they'll tell me, I really want my wife, husband to come. I'll say, why? No, they should come. Why? It would be so nice, that couple, they come together. Would be so nice if I could come with my spouse. Why? But I want it. And so now I try to find a way to make them do it. Is me exerting power. Is it always that? Yes. Can't I want them to do something because it's good for them? You can tell them it's good for them and then leave it to them. But that's not what we do. We don't just tell them it's good for them and leave it to them. We tell them it's good for them and then we make them do it if we can. And so there's another interesting thing. We all know who we can do it with and who we can't do it with. We'll know when somebody, if I exert my power, they will surrender. We also know those people who, if I exert my power, they'll exert theirs and make chutney out of me. So then we don't even try to do that. And we avoid them exerting their power over us. And so this becomes relationship dynamics. Avoiding other people exerting their power over us and we trying to exert our power over others. I find this very fascinating. Personally, I find it very fascinating how we exert power. And I'll see it even in helpers. In Hong Kong, we have, other countries may not have, but staff with employers. It's like, you need me, so I'm going to do this and you're going to let me get away with it. But I've seen staff do that all the time. It's them exerting their power. Actually, as staff, they're not in a powerful position, but they will find a way to use their power. Kids do it with adults all the time too. Depending on personality, of course, they'll do it in sometimes very cute ways. I've seen little toddlers use their power against their parents by literally doing puppy dog. And I'm watching it. I'm watching them play their parent. The parent gets totally played. Even a 3-year-old will exert his or her power. Why? It's an innate desire within us. So even seeking pleasure is an innate desire within us. Nobody has to teach us to seek pleasure. Babies will seek pleasure, right? They'll rub when you're holding them. They'll eat what they like. Nobody has to teach us to look for pleasure, to desire pleasure. And nobody teaches us to desire power. Like I said, not rule the world power, although some people do have rule the world power. It will be these small things. And it will be with the ones we can exert it over. And we will push to see if we can exert power over more people. And maybe not in a horrible, manipulative way. So, scriptures are constantly reminding us that these natural innate desires are not the most conducive for us to excel or to help us to find happiness. So in me seeking pleasure, that's not the way I'm going to find happiness. So it's a natural desire for me to seek pleasure, but the more I fulfill that desire, the more it leads to desire. The more it leads to dependency. And actually it will lead to me getting bored. because I desire food and then I'm bored. Something new, something new, something new. Desire watching TV and then now I'm bored of whatever's there. And I'm looking for something new, something new, something new. And so what am I desiring pleasure for? Because I think it will make me happy, but I give in to the pleasure and I enjoy it and it doesn't give me happiness. So no need to give in to pleasure. In fact, don't give in to pleasure. And that discipline and self-control becomes a mind that is more likely to be able to find happiness. In the same way, the desire for power that we have, when we become aware of it, we don't have to give in to it. The person doesn't have to do what I want them to do. Even though I can feel the desire rising in my heart to want to control this person, to want to change this person, to want to make a comment to this person so that they feel bad, they feel guilty, they have regret. I can see the desire and I can not act on it. Why? Because when I desire power and I desire to exert my power, it doesn't lead to me being happy. In fact, sometimes when I successfully bulldoze over someone and make them do exactly what I want them to do, I feel horrible because I can see that they are miserable. Or I feel horrible because now they no longer like me. They resent me. So I've lost them. And actually what I wanted was for them to love me. But now they're just resenting me because I made them do this. And I made them feel small because when we exert our power in a way to show it, we're taking away somebody else's power. For me to exert mine, I have to take away theirs. And so in taking away theirs, they're going to naturally be resentful or hurt, embarrassed, insulted. Again, these are not big emotions. They'll be small. They'll be small emotions. Sometimes like at a dinner table and somebody makes a comment and you'll see it on a person's face. It'll just be that small and it's gone. How can I be happy when another person is feeling resentful, hurt, insulted, embarrassed, or weak, intimidated? So there's this whole thing in management, which is very popular, about win-lose and win-win. Many of you would have heard it. It's been around for a long time. In a win-lose situation, actually it's lose-lose. Because even though you've won something, you've lost something else. So if it's money, if you've won money, what you've lost is trust or friendship. Remember one movie I'd seen long ago, and I don't remember which movie it was. It was something to do with the world wars, and there was a general, colonel, lower rank guy. And he was extremely efficient and he was very loved and he was and so they wanted to promote him to be captain, higher rank. I don't know the rankings, so just bear with me. And he would refuse. And so somebody else would get promoted and, battle after battle. And they'd say, but you very good. You know how to lead the people. Everyone listens to you. We want to promote you. No. And every time when everyone else asked him, why don't you get promoted? He said, because I lose all my friends. And I mean, if you're in an army fighting and you don't know when your last day is going to be, actually you're smart, right? What's the point of being ambitious? Rather have everyone like me and feel loved and feel included and feel like I belong. So win lose is actually, even when you win, you lose something. So I have to take away something from you, basically, is win lose. So you lose your money, I get profit. You lose first place, second place, third place, I get status, right? That's assuming I'm winning, huh? Which of course. In win-win, neither person loses anything. Both people gain. This can't happen when we exert power. Because when we exert power, we're taking away somebody else's power. If they happily give us out their power, different thing, like, you need to make a decision and I can't decide. Okay, I'm deciding, done. But also it would depend what kind of decision it is. Like, decision of what to eat that day is minuscule. Decision on what career, yeah, that's not something that's taking away power. Get married, don't get married. That's taking away power. Yeah. So, and we did this a lot in the love letters talks. The solution is when we love, we're giving, but we're not losing. Because you still have love, even though you give love. And so instead of exerting power, spiritual journey is love. And so we make this distinction between vyavaharik living, everyday. I don't like the word, but I guess translation is worldly living or worldly thinking. Transactional, let's use the word transactional, because I don't particularly like worldly, and spiritual living. And so in spiritual living, to operate and make all decisions from a point of view of love. In transactional level living, default setting is exert power. So the more we understand that this is just what we do, huh? This is just what we do. Why do we do it? Because that's what we've seen everyone else do. We've seen parents do, we've seen other elders do, we've seen teachers do, we see movies do. I mean, the movie's just not spicy if everyone loves each other. Somebody has to be power hungry. And somebody has to be mean. You just wouldn't have Marvels if you didn't have some power hungry villain. It just wouldn't exist, right? You need the Thanos clicking his finger, making half the universe disappear. And the reason those movies do so well is because we relate. Because every villain in my life is taking away my power. Who's the villain in my life? For each one different. Maybe parent, maybe boss, maybe friend, maybe in-law, neighbor, anyone. In my life, that's the villain. And why they the villain? Because they trying to control me, take away my power. And in somebody's life, I'm the villain. Why? Because I'm trying to take away their power. Classic example, if you're an adult with a kid, you the kid's villain. Maybe the kid's not your villain because you love them so dearly. Maybe neighbor's your villain, maybe boss is your villain. But we always both. And why? Because of this power play. And it's so subtle. The power play is so subtle. Our exerting of power over people is so subtle. Did Draupadi know how to do it? Yeah. She definitely knew how to do it. Unfortunately, we don't have enough dialogue on Draupadi to know how often she did it and what are some of her other virtues. She was skilled at knowing how to exert her power. She was also very skilled at getting what she wanted. Of course, she had to go through one of the most horrendous experiences a woman has ever had to go through in all of history. So it's not like her life was all cushy. And it's not because you have power that your life is going to be all roses. And because you know how to use power doesn't mean you're going to avoid suffering, which is also an interesting thing. I can have power, I can know how to use power, and I'm still going to suffer. Huh. So, what's the point of having it? I'll suffer less? No. I can have pleasure, I can thoroughly enjoy pleasure, and I will still suffer. Huh. So, what was the point of having it? Well, enjoy while you can within the limits of Dharma. For pleasure, for power, don't enjoy as much as you can within the limits of Dharma. Be acutely aware of your desire for power and be acutely, even more acutely aware than your desire for power, be more acutely aware of greed for power. Because desire becomes greed very quickly. And it's just that small little tip. Remember what greed is. I ate, it was yummy. I don't need to eat the second bite, but I ate the second bite. Second bite is greed? Yep. Never mind gluttony. Never mind the Roman Empire where they ate so much and then threw up just so that they could eat again. Oh, y'all didn't know they did that? They actually had sinks for people to go and throw up so that they could eat some more. That's a whole new level of greed. We're not that level of greed. In pleasure, body will suffer. In power, people suffer. When my desire for power becomes greed, people suffer. And please remember, I cannot be happy when I have taken somebody else's power. Unhappy. Okay, so Subhadra joins the Pandavas and it's very, very happy. And actually the other thing that I wanted to talk about, so maybe she wanted power and she's not a criminal for wanting to do so because all of us want power. But the other thing about Draupadi, and this is again true about all of us, and it's true, and it's another thing that makes the Mahabharata so beautiful, or any story beautiful for that matter. We can see a character flaw in a person, but then you also see the beauty of the character in that person. So why did Draupadi then suddenly love Subhadra? Because she loved Krishna. And her love for Krishna overrided her wanting to have power over Arjuna, her wanting to have power over Subhadra. And so now Subhadra introduces herself as I am Subhadra, and Draupadi calls her sister. And then says, come, come. And this is, let me introduce you to Kunti and let me introduce you to Gandhavri. And Gandhavri is the one who's blinded herself. And then, let me show you the palace and let me show you how the dishes that Arjuna likes to eat and how to cook them. And so, like, really nice person now. From, I'm not talking to you because, you want to marry somebody else too. Totally pampering Subhadra like a younger sister. And so all of us have this desire for power, desire for pleasure, desire for this, desire for that. And we all have that capacity to love and then just override any of the other desires and any of the other weaknesses. And you see it so beautifully in Draupadi, in this moment of Subhadra coming home. So now Krishna is there and Subhadra is there, and they in Indraprastha. And this is an interesting scene in the Mahabharata, and it's actually quite a short scene, but it will always be in every single renditioning of the Mahabharata, because it plays a part in how Arjuna gets the Gandiva bow, which is a significant, well, I guess you can't call it an accessory, but the Gandiva bow was Arjuna's trademark, logo, insignia. It was the bow that tang of the Gandiva bow that made people shake. Okay, so the story is fairly simple. Well, not so simple, short. I'll say basically Arjuna and Krishna are walking. They sit down to have a rest. An old Brahmana comes up to them and say, will you please feed me? They said, of course. Kshatriya's duty is to feed anyone who comes to them, all the more if they are Brahmana. And then the Brahmana says, oh, but my diet's not your regular food. I should, but they've already said it, of course. So they were tricked. He said, I am Agni Devata, and I need to eat the special herbs that are there in the Gandhava forest. Kandava forest. And this forest has been protected by Indra Devata. So Indra Devata is the god in charge of rain. Agni Devata is fire. Agni Devata wants to burn up this whole forest. Every time Agni Devata tries to burn this forest, Indra Devata makes it rain. So he cannot burn the forest. So Krishna and Arjuna both looked at Agni and says, well, why do you want to burn the forest? And so he explains that he has become gravely ill because every time there's a havan, people keep pouring ghee, and he's consumed too much ghee. And so to regain his health, he needs a special herb. And that herb grows only in the Gandharva forest. So he needs to burn that forest to be able to eat the herb so that he can heal. So why is Indra not letting him burn the forest? Because in the forest, Taksha, the snake, and his whole family live. If you remember, this is the same Taksha that King Janmanijaya tries to kill. It's the same Taksha that bites King Parikshit and ends King Parikshit's life. If y'all don't remember these stories, totally fine. It just shows you that everything is highly, highly, highly interconnected, which is also another point of the Mahabharata, that, you know, when we try to think, why did this happen to me? There's so many reasons. Like we can't even figure out one reason of why it happened to me, but actually there'll be so many reasons of why one thing happens, because it's not one domino effect in pattern. There's lots of domino effects happening simultaneously in all our lives. Like ripples in a pond bouncing off each other continuously is our lives and our actions and the way we affect each other. Okay, so Indra's friends with Daksha, and he didn't want Daksha's home or family to be hurt, and so he would reign, and so Agni couldn't burn the forest. Now, Agni's requirement, I mean, you know, let all the animals leave, Agni burn the forest. Would it be okay, right? None of us would object. Why? Agni's sick, Agni needs the medicine. Have the medicine. What right do we have to stop somebody from having medicine and getting better? But Agni said the forest has to be sealed and he will consume everything in the forest. Why? So I'll do the story first and then we'll come back to it. So Krishna and Arjuna are incredibly efficient warriors. And so they bind the forest using arrows. So to make it pictorial, they create a force field around the forest So nothing can exit and nothing can enter. Agni then starts burning. All the creatures that are living in the forest, of course, want to save themselves and try to get out. None of them can get out. Indra comes to try and save the forest. It rains and the water falls to the side because of this force field that is being held in place by Krishna and Arjuna to let Agni consume the forest. It's crazy how many creatures die in this forest fire. Like when you read it, it's horrendous. There's so much death in this forest fire. Krishna and Arjuna are successful. Agni burns the forest. Indra comes. Indra sees his rain is not being effective. He gets really angry. He fights with Arjuna and Krishna. Even while Indra is fighting with Arjuna and Krishna, this is also really interesting that he's so proud of Arjuna because Arjuna is Indra's son. And so while fighting him, and it's not like, oh, let's see what my son can do. It's proper fighting to win. But when Arjuna performs so skillfully, Indra is so proud that my son is so skillful. And while fighting Krishna, Indra's telling himself, there's no way I'm going to win. Why am I even bothering? But he continues to fight and puts up a really, really good fight as his duty to his friend Daksha, who he had said he would save. So in terms of him keeping his word and in terms of him wanting to help his friend, he fights with all his ability and skill and with the intention to succeed. But of course, Krishna was going to win. And here, Arjuna also is very, very efficient. So everything's over. The forest has been burned. Hundreds and thousands of creatures have been killed. Daksha wasn't in the forest at that point in time, and so he is saved because we know he plays a crucial part later. But his family is killed in the fire, which makes him really angry. And so who does Daksha take out his anger on? Arjuna's grandson. Who killed Daksha's whole family? Arjuna. That's why when I started the Mahabharata, I was talking about there's no end to wanting to take vengeance. Okay, so why would Krishna do this? Why would Krishna allow hundreds and thousands of creatures to be killed? So I guess we can liken it to today's forest fires that happen in so many countries. Some man-made, some accidentally happen, some naturally. Yeah. In nature, even without man interfering, forest fires existed. And they would last 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. And then there'd be rain. But you'd see this vast stretch of land just burnt. And, we don't live in nature as much anymore, but I remember when I grew up in South Africa, we were much more in touch with nature in South Africa than Hong Kong kids are. I guess Africa, right? You're going to be more in touch with nature. The elders always said that's how nature restores itself. So when you grow things in the earth, after a while, the earth runs out of nutrition. Interesting that happens. Everything gets depleted. But when there's a fire, it's replenished. So if you think about this scenario, how did it get replenished? Well, all those creatures that died become the earth. I guess you can say fertilizer in a way. Now, if you take out man from the equation, nature will always find a way to balance itself. And so fires will happen and creatures will die and it will be horrendous, but nature will balance itself. And even those creatures will be more harmoniously now living in the new ecosystem. Take out man from the equation. Put man in the equation, and you have what we have today, humongous concrete cities where we have burned and destroyed so much forest and so many creatures. There's a Balvihar cartoon that I had gotten once. Well, it's not made for Balvihar, but I use it for Balvihar. And it's really cute. And it's a kid saying, there's an orangutan in my room. And why is it there? And the orangutan is doing this and making a mess and made a poo and ate the banana. And there's a orangutan in my room. And why would it come into my room? Why don't you go into your home? And then it's a very cute room with the kid and the orangutan making a mess in the room. And then suddenly it switches to the orangutan point of view. And you see this forest being destroyed by bulldozers. And the orangutan says, "They are humans in my forest. What do I do?" When we hear a story about how hundreds of creatures got destroyed in the fire that Krishna and Arjuna helped to make happen, we'll feel that's wrong. How can Krishna allow so many creatures to be killed? We live in these cities. How are we living so comfortably, having killed so many creatures, so many trees, so many, in one flower that comes to the ashram, sometimes there's so many bugs. It's really interesting. Some of the flowers come from Thailand, some of them come from Holland, some of them come from China, some of them. And so I won't mention which country, but if I buy the flowers from that country, there's a lot more bugs in the flower. And I no longer buy it from that country because my health screams. And then I have to sit and take out each of the bugs. In one flower, there'll be 3, 4 bugs, plus things crawling up and down the stems. In one flower, how much life there is in one stem, one flower. And then we've killed entire trees, entire forests. And then we nicely sit here saying, so cruel that they destroyed a forest. So cruel that Krishna told this one to lie. So cruel. Are what face do we have? how are we so quick to judge? So because it's Agni Devata, Indra Devata, these are forces of nature, and for Krishna is just helping nature rebalance itself. So to build, okay, so part of the story that becomes important is Agni then goes deep into the earth and takes out the Gandiva bow and presents it to Arjuna. Also grants him, when Indra fought Arjuna and was happy with Arjuna, Indra granted him a boon. Arjuna asked for all the celestial weapons and was granted. These celestial weapons become important in the Mahabharata war. And from all the creatures that survived this forest fire, there was only one Asura that survived this fire. And he survived the fire by digging into the earth. And as we know, fire goes upwards. And so he was saved. And what's his name? Maya. Maya survived. So any creature, the condition that Agni said was any creature trying to leave the forest Arjuna or Krishna would kill them so that they still get consumed by the fire. This Maya goes and hugs Krishna's feet and says, spare me. So just FYI, if you are about to get cursed by a great saint or sage or the incarnation of the Lord, the only way to save yourself is fall at their feet. They will not curse, they will not hurt anyone who holds on to their feet. We want to get out of jail free card, right? All of us want to get out of jail free card. How to escape all our sufferings? So simple. Fall at the feet of the Lord. Hold on tight to the feet of the, like Maya literally held, like not letting go. Until Krishna said, you are safe, I will spare you. Maya says, ask me for anything and I will give it to you for sparing my life. Arjuna, not Krishna. Arjuna says, if it's asking for something is the reason for sparing your life, I didn't spare your life. I will ask you for nothing. Remember I said Arjuna was a very deserving student of the Gita. Krishna wouldn't teach Arjuna if he wasn't a deserving student of the Gita. Look at his mindset. If I have given you something, then I shouldn't take something from you. I gave you. Otherwise, it becomes a transaction. But from Maya's point of view, I took something from you, I should give. So Maya says he will build this incredible palace for Yudhishthira. This is the famous palace of the Mahabharata. Have you all heard of it? Today, this palace would be considered a theme park. So let me describe this palace that was built by Maya. Please know Maya means illusion. You think it's there, but it's not. You think it's real, but it's not. If you want to use the word trickery, or if you want to use a nicer word, magic. What's magic? Tricking us only into thinking we're seeing something or experiencing something. So Maya builds this palace where solid ground is made to look like water. So it must be the type of stone he used and this type of coloring he used. Water was made to look like solid ground. This is a little dangerous. We'll see very soon why. Where it looked like it was a window, it was actually painting. Paintings that looked like windows, and windows that look like paintings. So just you can think of it, right? Like when we go to theme parks, how it's where you think it's a door, there's no door. And where the door is, you can't find it. Like today's escape rooms. You're looking, where's the door? How to get out of here? That's what I'm saying. Nothing we invented today is original. Even all our entertainment of today already existed in the Mahabharata. And the other description given is like, you think it's a short flight of stairs, but it's a really long flight of stairs. You think it's a really long flight of stairs, and it's only 2 steps. What's this? Maya. How do we experience it in our lives? We think it's so far. Where's God? So far. Where's God really? Here. Not even 1 step. We think all our pleasures and our comforts and all are here. Actually, they're taking us so far away from happiness. We think I'll have power, I'll rule. Takes us away from happiness, makes us go further and further. What we think to be real is actually unreal. What we think to be unreal is actually real. Water looks like floor, floor looks like water. Windows are paintings, real, unreal. How to know? You know, we pay money to go and see this. We get entertained. So fascinating for us. I know there's one person who will ask me every few months, should I go see what my past lives are? No. Next 2-3 months she'll come. Should I go to this tarot reader? No. Why? So exciting, so fascinating, so entertaining. Should find out, no? Favorite Indian way of saying it. Should find out, no? Good to know, right? No need. Absolutely no need. So this hall was built. And then they had housewarming party. That's what we do, right? When we have a new house. Who will come? Duryodhana. Who else will invite? Who else is there in the Mahabharata? We'll have to invite Duryodhana only. Duryodhana's character flaw. Have you all discovered it yet? Have we talked about it yet? We have, right? We've done, no, we haven't done Duryodhana character analysis. We did the Thrashtras. But Duryodhana's is very easy. I'll give you 0 points for guessing. What is it? Greed. Yeah, he was greedy. I can't say you're wrong. It's not the one that we are going to talk about today. What's his character flaw? Jealousy. He's jealous of Arjuna, but more than anyone else, he's jealous of Yudhishthira. Now Yudhishthira has this palace, one of a kind in all the land. What's that going to make our Duryodhana more jealous? Sometimes you think you're doing such a good thing. Maya thought he was doing such a good thing by building this awesome palace for Yudhishthira. What does it do? It invokes more jealousy. There's a really nice line in the Bhagavad Gita, and it doesn't get quoted as often as other things in the Bhagavad Gita get quoted, but for me, it's really stuck. Don't make people jealous. Actually, the first part is don't get jealous and don't make people jealous. Chapter 12, verse 18 or so. Don't make people jealous. Why? It's going to come back to hurt you only. Building such a house was inviting trouble. Live now in one small, simple house. Why you have to make it so fancy? You're getting married, go around the fire, invoke God's grace. Why you have to make it so fancy? I really don't get why people want to make other people jealous. It's going to hurt you. 100% it's going to hurt you. But now what to do? We want to exert our power. That's why, right? That's why we make people jealous, because we want to show, we want to exert our power. Natural tendency in us, now we cannot even control. Well, we can control, but we have to be aware of it to even control it. What am I saying? Duryodhana came to see the palace, got very jealous. That's basically what I'm saying. But it got worse than that. Remember I said where there was water, it looked like solid ground? Duryodhana steps into water. You get very embarrassed. If you're walking in public and you fall, you get very embarrassed. You step into something, you get very embarrassed. Bhim's character flaw. He had a very harsh tongue. Bhim didn't speak sweetly. He spoke very dipped in sarcasm, dipped in, you know, those sly comments that come from the side that are like lashes that whoop. That was Bhim's tongue. All throughout the Mahabharata. And it's not like he did it only to Duryodhana. He does it to Yudhishthira, who he loves the most. Only person he never dared to do and talk to like that is Draupadi and Kunti. So women were safe. But men, Bhim was mean. Bhim could be really nasty with the way he spoke. So when Duryodhana steps into the water, it's Bhim that says, blind man's son, also blind. Now that's not a nice thing for anyone to say. You just don't insult people's parents. Plus, blindness is not something to insult. Just not at all acceptable under any circumstance whatsoever. Some commentators say it's this comment that caused the Mahabharata war. One comment can cause a war. People have misquoted it and said Draupadi makes this comment. Please note, I have double checked and triple checked. It is not Draupadi that makes this comment. Because when speakers say it's Draupadi that makes the comment and then women have harsh tongue, oi, 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 Bhim makes this comment. Women may have harsh tongues, but this is not a gender specific flaw. No personality flaw is a gender specific flaw. It's definitely Bhim that makes this comment. Now, you and I, who love Arjuna, don't like Duryodhana, hear this comment and we think, cha, Bhim, that's not nice. Imagine how Duryodhana feels. Firstly, the comment's not nice. Secondly, who's saying it? Enemy number one. Duryodhana goes home that night determined to make the Pandavas suffer. As if that wasn't enough. Narad Muni comes. This Naradji, last time he came, it was so good, right? He told the Pandavas to live in discipline. He should come like that only. This time he doesn't come like that. This time he comes to fulfill his reputation. What's Naradji Muni's reputation? Masti. He instigates, Chavi. Naradji's signature personality trait is he pokes at the point where he knows it's going to hurt. Like, when you go to acupuncture people, it's like, why don't you press here? It doesn't hurt here. No, they'll press only on the point where it hurts. Naradji did proper acupuncture. And he really punctured. He comes and tells Yudhishthira, I went to heaven and I saw all the previous kings. And this one had this palace and this chair. This one had this palace and this chair. This one had this palace and this chair. And your father also had a nice palace, not as nice as everyone else's. Why? Why doesn't my father have a beautiful palace in the heavens? Because you haven't done Rajasuya Yagna. So it is a belief that if we do in our ancestors' name, so when people pass away, when we do good deeds in their names, the merits of those deeds reach them. So you will find we give in charity in the name of people that have passed away. Sometimes you'll see it in ashrams and schools. It will be the name of somebody because we want actually, you don't actually have to put the physical name there. In your heart, you just have to think of the person when you do that charity, when you do that service, and the punya of that service goes to that person wherever they are, goes to the soul. That soul might be in heaven or hell, might be in another lifetime, might be in the interspace between worlds, transiting. There's transit lounges. It is also believed that when children live righteous lives, that becomes the punya of the parents that have passed. And when children live unrighteous lives, it becomes the pap of parents that have passed. Why this unfairness? Because the duty of a parent was to instill the values and understanding for the child to live a righteous life. So if they have fulfilled their duty and the child lives a righteous life, they should get the perks. And if they didn't fulfill their duty, they will get the cutbacks. Is this true? Why? Actions have consequences. And so every action we do will result in a consequence. If as a parent you did the best you could, will you still suffer if your kid turns out to be a wretched person? No. Why? You did the very best you could. But did you give values? Did you try and make sure you educated them in the right way? If you did all the right things, you're good. It's a huge responsibility. It becomes very scary for people to hear such things. I'm not trying to scare you. Most parents do the best they can. And then, anyways, we're facing consequences of so many actions. Chalo, we'll face this consequence also, right? It's not like if you didn't become a parent, you're not doing actions and there's no consequences to face. You still have to face consequences of hazard conversations that we have with people and interactions. We're still saying so many things that's affecting so many people. The dominoes are still happening. So, one way or the other, you're facing consequences of actions, basically. But because this belief is there, that the way a child lives their life can benefit their parents in the heavens, Yudhishthira now has a desire to live so that his father gets punya. There was no other way to make Yudhishthira desire something. If you told Yudhishthira, if you have the best kingdom in the world, no desire would have come. There's a beautiful woman, no desire would have come. Tell Yudhishthira, as a son, doing this action will bring your father more punya in heaven, Yudhishthira will have desire. So they do a Raja Surya Yajna. What is that? Basically, you get a lot of wealth. Do I want to go into what is Raja Surya Yajna? Well, nobody does it anymore, so no need. Basically, now, after doing this big event that Yudhishthira has to do for his father to get a better place in heaven, they now have times 10 the wealth that they had before the yajna. Again, for the big yajna, who will they call? Duryodhana. What does Duryodhana see? So much wealth. Like Mahabharata's very good at describing things. They describe the pearl and the diamond and the spices and the carpets. They describe the carpet, the vases, everything they described. Every single kingdom will send them gifts as part of the Raja Surya Yajna. The more Duryodhana saw, the more jealous he got. The more he saw, the more jealous he got. He went home that night. This is where the story changes now. This is where greed becomes the character flaw now, not just jealousy. He wanted all that wealth. He wanted the palace of illusions. He wanted the respect and the grandeur that he saw. So bottom line is, Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana gave Yudhishthira a land that was barren and useless. Yudhishthira turned it into the most rich, most glamorous, most popular, most virtuous kingdom in the land. Yudhishthira fed 1,000 brahmanas every day. You need to have that many brahmanas to feed on rotation every day in gold plates. They could take the plate home with them at the end of the meal as their dakshana. How wealthy was he to be able to do that? And Yudhishthira's large-heartedness, take the gold plate. Take. He had no greed. Yudhishthira had no greed. Probably that's why he had so much wealth. Of course, they had Krishna sitting next to them also. Helps for that. Remember, it was Krishna who told all the devatas, make the land fertile, make it rain, make this kingdom beautiful. Literally, Krishna made flowers bloom and butterflies fly, rainbows appear. I'm following cartoon depictions. Actually, he made golden palaces. Doesn't sound as nice, no? Flowers bloom sounds nicer. Okay, we'll pause here for today. Any questions? Next week, very sad. Game of dice. Ta-na-na-na. Yes. You always thought Maya was a woman? In scriptures, she's depicted feminine. But this was a person. He was a dude. His name was Maya. Had a lot of the same qualities. Actually, nothing is masculine or feminine. Like a tree is not masculine or feminine, but we tend to say Mother Nature. Yeah. I don't know why we tend to do that. We'd attribute masculine to fire, but actually fire doesn't have a gender. If we were to depict fire, though, we'd depict it as a male. Water we depict as a woman. I don't know why we do that. We only create stereotypes. Water doesn't have gender. Fire doesn't have gender. So Maya doesn't actually have a gender. Neither does Brahman.
Maya's like married to.
Yeah. Physically, we say Maya is married to Shiva and Shakti, and Shiva is masculine and Shakti is feminine. But actually, Shiva doesn't have a gender, which is why we have the Shivling. And Shakti also doesn't have a gender. And so sometimes attributing genders to them causes this inequality. And so we need to raise above them. But sometimes attributing qualities to them help us to relate to them. So it's a little bit of a catch-22. And I guess it really depends on our level of maturity, which one we want to. But I mean, in some languages like Hindi and Spanish, every word gets given a gender. French also, right? Like I know in Hindi, kursi is a feminine. Pen is given feminine. Every word is given a gender. And then the grammar of that sentence changes. I know this because I don't know the genders of the word and speak horrible Hindi. Gets the genders all mixed up. Has someone stepped in to make Bhim apologize for his hurtful remarks to Duryodhana? Yeah, you know, it's very hard to make Bhim do anything. Kunti did try. I don't think for this particular incident Kunti tried. When Kunti was bringing them up, Kunti definitely tried to instill the value into Bhim of being a little bit more responsible with his speech. But there's a few things about Bhim. I think I've mentioned this previously. Bhim was highly affectionate. So he could be really hurtful, but he was also highly affectionate. So he literally, like, he swayed. So there were moments when you forgave him because he was just so incredibly affectionate and soft and kind. And this is definitely true for Yudhishthira. Duryodhana didn't see that sweet side of Bhim, but others did, right? Like Kunti, Yudhishthira, they saw the really incredibly sweet side of Bhim, and they saw the harsh words that he spoke as well. And then this is true for all of us. It comes back to what I was saying earlier. We all will want to exert our power. Now, Bhim's power was physical strength. He could crush mountains, and I'm not even exaggerating. Now, when you have that kind of power, pride's going to creep in. And so one of the reasons Bhim was so harsh is that pride that nobody can mess with him. He could bully, but nobody could bully him. Just nobody could bully him. And since nobody could say anything to him, with the exception of Kunti, this little, that we call it abhiman, it comes in us also. When we think we do good and no one can mess with us, we become a little bit insensitive. So he wasn't going to listen. Because when pride creeps into us like that, it's like when we make kids say sorry and they don't mean it. It's worse. Yeah. What you really need to do is wait for life to give them one tappar. Or if you're the parent, you give them the tappar. Yeah, I mean, he was only so mean with his speech because of pride, because he really felt invincible. So sometimes feeling invincible is not so good. It's one of the reasons death exists in the world. We are all invincible. No need to be so proud. It's sad that it's such a harsh lesson that helps us learn such things. But then pride, when it's pride that creeps into us, only harsh lesson will work. Did Bhim learn his lesson? There's not much enough written about it. Mm. Yudhishthira definitely learned. Arjuna definitely learned. Bhim, Nakula, Sahadev, not enough is written for me to really make an analysis. Any other questions?
Mahabharata sounds like a scheme of Krishna, Swamiji.
Yeah, a game of, yeah. Well, all of creation is Krishna's Leela. And yeah, Mahabharata is written like Krishna's Leela. Mm. Remember, it's Leela. The word Leela means play. We were talking about it last week, right? Like birds in the wind, playing. So I think you use the word scheming. It's not scheming, it's playing.
Yeah.
Om, Om. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukha bhag bhavet, asato ma satgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om